Hi guys. So I've had some questions about the project 4 and how to get started with project 4. And there's a bit that I think that some people aren't quite getting, and that's the idea that we can use an array if we have a set of things, um, for example, letters, numbers, and we want to count the number of those things. We can actually use a list as a holder for the values, where each element in the list corresponds to a letter or a number or whatever it is that we're trying to count or keep track of. So I've got an example file here, and I mean you can you can type it in from your from the video. I'm not going to post it, but I've got an example file here that's going to kind of show you what I'm trying to do. And let's see. So I have a file. Let's see if I can find where that file is. View, Tool, Windows, Project. There it is. All right. So I have a file here called test.txt. And all I've got in test.txt is just a line of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So I've basically got numbers 1 through 9, including 0, twice, right? So there's two copies of each one in here, and that's all that's in the file. And it's got some blank lines in the end, but that doesn't really matter. So now let's go and look up at our test Python code. And so what I want to do in this program is I'm going to count the number of each digit, the number of occurrences of each digit. So I'm going to count how many zeros, I'm going to count how many ones. We looked at the file, we saw that that number should be 2. It should be 2 for everything, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open this file, and here's my open command right here. Let me put some little pipe space in here so we can see a little more clearly. So you see I open my file, test.txt, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to call my file.read. I'm going to read the whole thing in. That's just easiest for me. I've only got one line. Super simple for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the whole thing in. I'm read the whole file in. Now, remember, when you read the whole thing in, you have some new line characters at the end. And if you looked at the file, you'll see actually that there's several, right? Because these are all blank lines. So there's actually 3 new line characters at the end of this. So you don't see those in the file, but remember they're there. That's why it's showing these blank lines. They're the /n character, right? So in order to get rid of all of those, because I don't want to count those new lines, characters. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this rstrip function. And this rstrip function stands for right strip. And what it's going to do is it's going to strip out any white space characters from the right hand side of the string, right? There's an L strip for the left hand, there's an R strip for the right hand. So I'm going to say my string equals my string.rstrip. This function call is going to strip out all the new lines at the end of the string. And then this is just my new string, which does not have any new lines in it. And if you want to see that, you can always just remember, if you want to see things in your program, you can always just print them, right? So I'm going to print it before, I'm going to print it after. This is from the string chapter. You should know how to do this. You've already done some programs with this, but just to show you, see, the first time I run it, there's this whole bunch of blank lines, right? And then the second time I run it, there's no blank lines. The second time I print it, there's no blank lines. And what that does is just strips out all the blank lines. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an array that's going to hold the values, the count for each character. So initially when I start, of course, the count is 0. So there's different ways that I could do this. I could say, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and I could explicitly make a 10 element array that has 10 zeros in it. But there's a shorthand, remember, in Python. And what I can do instead is I can use this times 10. And what that's going to do is it's going to put in, it's going to multiply this times 10 and concatenate them all together. So I'm going to have 10 element array elements. And you see I actually print it after I do this. And you see I've got 10 zeros. And so this is a really nice little shorthand. You probably find this pretty handy in your project. If you want to make, say, for every letter, you'd have to do this 26 times. It's going to take you a long time. You can just do times 26. It'll make an array with 26 zeros in it. So this is a nice little shorthand in Python that makes things easier for you. And what I'm doing here is I'm just setting up my array. So every element of this array is going to correspond to a digit. So the first element is going to be the 0th digit. The second element is going to be the first, the string 1. the third element is going to be the string 2, etc., 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 all the way up to element 9, which is the 10th element, and it corresponds to the zeros, or corresponds to the nines, right? Um, so I print this array after I do this. You see it's all full of zeros. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a little loop, and this is a simplified version. You're not going to be able to do it exactly like this because this is something we can do for strings. And what we're doing here, remember in Python we can treat strings just like lists, right? A string can be a list. And so this 4-digit in my string is just going to loop over all the characters in the string, and every character is going to be one iteration of this loop. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert. So this thing is a digit. Remember, it's going to be a character. So the very first one is going to be the character 1. So I'm going to convert the character 1 to the number 1. Then I'm going to say, okay, this index, this thing that I'm going to increment in my array, I'm going to increment the first, the element 1, which is the second element, right? Because the first element is element 0. That's fine. So element 1 I want to increment, so I'm going to go to my array. I'm going to look up that element that corresponds with that digit. So for the first one, that's going to be 1. And so this index, it's going to be the character 1. This is going to be the index 1, the integer 1. So I'm going to go to the integer 1, and I'm going to add 1 to it, right? And I'm just going to do that every time. I'm going to take the digit that I'm looking at. I'm going to convert it to a integer. And then I'm going to increment that array element that corresponds to that particular integer. So you see I print the output. Everything says 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Let's go into here. Let's edit this. Let's take out one of the zeros. All right. So I took out one of the zeros. I'm going to hit save all. So now the 0th element should only have 1. So we're going to run this, see what happens, and we see in fact that that's what happens. The 0th element only has 1 because what we're doing is we're taking the digit, each character from the string, we're converting that into a number, which is the index into our array, and then we're incrementing that number. So every one of these array elements corresponds to a digit, a number. The first one is the 0, second one is 1, third one is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up through 9. And all we're doing is we want to, when we encounter a digit, a particular digit, for example, let's say we encounter a 2, we want to go and increment the third array element, which is array index 2, right? So we're going to convert that digit, that character, to a number, and we're going to use that number to find the right array element that corresponds to that digit, and we're going to increment it by 1. So you're going to do the same thing in your project, except you're going to use letters, and you're going to have to map the letters onto an element of your list, or you're going to do that with number lengths. You're going to count the numbers. You can do the same thing with the word lengths. So this is the concept that you have to use. This is the idea that you have to use. That you have an array. Every element in the array holds a count for something, right? It holds a count for something different. So all you have to do is go from you have to map from the thing that you're trying to count onto the array element that you need to increment, and then you increment that array element when you count it. So for things like length, it's pretty easy. The lengths could be from 0 to 15. So you just can map those directly onto an array element. You know, the array element 0 is length 0. Array element 1 is length 1. You won't have any zeros. That's fine. Don't worry about it. You can just ignore that one in the end. Throw it away. But array element 1, array element 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 15. Which remember, you'll actually need a 16 element array for that, not 15. And the same thing for letters. Like each array element is going to correspond to letter. The first one will be A, the second one will be B. So all you need to do is convert the letter to the array element index, right? The index into the list. So the way that you do that is the function that I gave you, right? Using the ORD of the A, and then subtract ORD of A from A. If you subtract ORD of A from ORD of A, then you get 0, which is the 0th element of the list, right? If you subtract ORD of A from ORD of B, you're going to get 1, which would be the second element of the array, which would be the B element, and you just go and increment that particular one. So you just need to build a mapping from the thing that you're trying to count to its position in the array in the list, and then you just increment it. And so this code, should be pretty helpful for getting started with this. Of course, yours is going to be a little more complicated than this. This is just some example code, but it should at least help you get started. All right, thanks everyone. Good luck on your last program.